The humid air of the city pressed down, as thick and heavy as the disdain Marcus Thorne felt emanating from the two men watching him. He'd just parked his ancient sedan, a car that had seen him through law school, countless late nights, and far too many ramen dinners. Now, idling outside the city's most prestigious courthouse, it felt like a mocking symbol of his perceived stagnation. Marcus, in his late 30s, wore a suit that was more functional than fashionable, and his worn briefcase was a testament to endless paperwork, not grand victories. He was here for a routine preliminary hearing, nothing glamorous. But to Jordan and Bryce, emerging from their gleaming luxury SUV, he was clearly just nothing. For more gripping tales from the hidden corners of justice and beyond, subscribe to Dark Side of Luna, where the shadows hold the truth. Look at this guy. Jordan scoffed, loud enough for Marcus to hear, his voice dripping with contempt. Jordan, a hotshot defense attorney, was impeccably dressed, his watch probably worth more than Marcus's car. Still driving that rust bucket? And that suit looks like it fought a losing battle with a homeless shelter. Bryce, his junior associate, snickered, adjusting his designer glasses. Probably still handles public defender cases. What a loser. Marcus felt the familiar sting, the casual dismissal that had followed him for years, ever since he chose a career in public service over the lucrative corporate world. He ignored them, tightening his grip on his briefcase, his gaze fixed on the courthouse entrance. He was used to it. The sleek, predatory lawyers of the city often looked down on prosecutors, especially those in the federal division, handling complex, often thankless, white-collar crime. They saw the long hours, the meager pay, the quiet grind, and equated it with failure. As Marcus walked towards the courthouse steps, Jordan deliberately stepped in his path, blocking him. "Hey, counselor. Just wondering, you still stuck on that old bribery case? The one against Senator Hayes? Heard that's going nowhere fast." Another typical government fumble. Jordan winked at Bryce, who snickered again. The Senator Hayes case was indeed notorious. A complex web of offshore accounts and political favors that had confounded investigators for years. It was Marcus's current albatross, a case that many saw as unwinnable, a sign of his perceived incompetence. Marcus stopped, his gaze finally meeting Jordan's. His eyes, usually tired, held a surprising depth, a quiet intensity that was often overlooked. "Senator Hayes's case is proceeding," he stated, his voice calm, steady, devoid of emotion. "Justice takes time, Mr. Hayes. Something a flashy defense attorney might not understand, since your job is usually to delay it." Jordan laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound. "Justice? Please, you're talking about a man who couldn't even afford a decent car. What do you know about justice, loser? You can barely keep the lights on, let alone bring down a senator." He took a step closer, towering over Marcus, his arrogance palpable. "You're a joke, Thorne. Always have been. Just quit and go teach night classes." Marcus Thorne didn't flinch. His shoulders remained squared, his posture unwavering. He simply looked at Jordan, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in his eyes. The tired lines around them seemed to sharpen, replaced by a cold, steely resolve. He reached into his worn briefcase, not for papers, but for a small, gleaming silver badge. He clipped it to his lapel, the official seal glinting in the morning sun. The silence on the courthouse steps was deafening, broken only by the distant city hum. Jordan, his impeccably styled hair suddenly seeming disheveled, stared at the badge as if it were a venomous snake. His face, moments ago flushed with arrogance, was now a sickly white. Federal prosecutor," he stammered, the words barely audible. You're but you drive that car." His voice trailed off into a strangled gasp. Bryce, behind him, clutched his own briefcase, visibly shaking. Marcus Thorne looked at Jordan, his eyes, no longer tired, now sharp as surgical steel. "Yes, Mr. Hayes," he stated, his voice quiet, yet cutting through Jordan's panic like a razor. "Marcus Thorne, Assistant United States Attorney, head of the Federal Public Corruption Unit for this district, and the lead prosecutor on Senator Hayes's case." He paused, letting each word land with devastating impact. The case you just called going nowhere. The one you just laughed about. Jordan's knees seemed to buckle. He knew exactly what this meant. He wasn't just dealing with a loser public servant. He was standing before one of the most powerful legal minds in the state. A man whose jurisdiction transcended state lines, whose investigations were notoriously quiet until they detonated. And he had just personally insulted him, mocked his commitment to justice, and publicly questioned his integrity. Now, if you'll excuse me, Marcus continued, his gaze unwavering, I have to prepare for the Senator Hayes hearing. A hearing that, contrary to your informed opinion, is very much going somewhere. He stepped past Jordan, who instinctively flinched back, leaving a clear path. Just as Marcus reached the courthouse doors, he paused, turning back. His voice was lower now, almost a murmur, yet it resonated with chilling clarity. Oh, and Mr. Hayes? I wouldn't worry too much about Senator Hayes's offshore accounts. We've got those details. What you should be worried about are the consulting fees paid by Senator Hayes's shell corporations directly to your firm over the last 3 years, especially the ones disguised as lobbying expenses for infrastructure development. The same ones that conveniently align with Senator Hayes pushing through that controversial rezoning bill that benefited your largest client. Jordan froze, his eyes wide with a new, deeper terror. The color drained from his face entirely. This wasn't just about arrogance anymore. This was about criminal conspiracy. Marcus hadn't just revealed his identity. He had revealed that he knew a secret Jordan thought was buried deep within his firm's confidential ledgers. The Senator Hayes case wasn't just bribery. It was a complex web of money laundering and political corruption, and Jordan's own firm was directly implicated. The sneering contempt he had shown Marcus just moments ago had just come back to hit him with the full, devastating force of federal law. Marcus Thorne simply held his gaze for another long, silent moment, a faint, almost imperceptible ghost of a smile touching his lips. It was the quiet triumph of a man who had been underestimated his entire life, now standing on the precipice of dismantling a kingdom of lies. Without another word, he turned and pushed through the heavy courthouse doors, leaving Jordan and Bryce standing frozen on the steps, their world suddenly collapsing around them. The once proud, arrogant defense attorney looked like he was about to vomit. Jordan's world had imploded. The loser he'd mocked seconds ago was a federal predator, and he was caught in his jaws. He frantically punched numbers on his phone, muttering curses. It's Thorne. He knows. He knows everything. His call went straight to voicemail. Then another, and another. The panic solidified into cold dread when he saw the news alert flash on his phone. Breaking. Federal subpoenas issued to Hayes' campaign donors. Grand jury convened on rezoning scandal. Marcus Thorne hadn't just spoken, he'd acted. The net was already closing. Meanwhile, inside the courthouse, Marcus Thorne moved with a quiet efficiency that belied his rumpled suit. He walked directly to a secure, glass-walled conference room where his small, elite team was already assembled. Lena, his sharp, no-nonsense lead investigator, and David, a brilliant, young forensic accountant. Their faces were grim but expectant. Marcus didn't need to say a word. The news alerts were already buzzing across their tablets. Jordan Hayes' firm is implicated, boss, Lena stated, her voice tight with suppressed excitement. The consulting fees match our patterns. He's just another link in the chain. Marcus nodded, pulling up a complex diagram on a large screen. It wasn't just Senator Hayes or Jordan's firm. Hayes was just a pawn, Marcus revealed, his eyes fixed on the intricate web of names and shell corporations. The rezoning, the infrastructure development bills, the sudden surge in crime reports in those specific districts. It all leads to one group, the Civic Progress Alliance. He pointed to a central node on the diagram, a seemingly benign nonprofit organization comprised of the city's most influential figures, Mayor Thompson, City Council President Anya Sharma, and the formidable real estate magnate Victor Sterling. They don't just influence legislation. They control it. They create the very chaos that justifies their solutions. Lena gasped. David looked up, his brow furrowed. The Civic Progress Alliance? But they're untouchable, Mr. Thorne. Sterling practically built half this city. Thompson is beloved. Sharma is a civil rights icon. Marcus's lips tightened into a grim line. That's their brilliance. They prey on the vulnerabilities of communities, then swoop in as saviors. The rezoning bills were to displace long-term residents and seize prime real estate. The crime waves were manufactured through implicit directives to police and inflated statistics, creating fear and driving down property values, forcing people out. Senator Hayes was just their legislative puppet. He tapped the diagram. And anyone who spoke out against their progress, anyone who encouraged community organizing or voter registration in those targeted districts, they found themselves facing spurious arrests, sudden legal troubles, or their businesses collapsing. He looked at Lena, his gaze holding a dark weight. Remember that whistleblower from the housing department, Sarah Jenkins? The one who vanished before testifying on the Apex development scandal 3 years ago. Lena's eyes widened in horror. You don't mean? Marcus didn't need to finish. I mean, this goes beyond bribery and land grabs. This group neutralizes dissent. And our investigation, specifically my meticulous pursuit of Senator Hayes, a pursuit they dismissed as the work of a loser, has brought us too close to their core operation. They know we're here. We just confirmed their pattern when Jordan Hayes panicked. He clicked a button, bringing up a screenshot of an anonymous, encrypted message received by his personal secure phone just that morning, dropped the Hayes case. You don't want to be the next loose end, Thorne. A chilling silence filled the room. This wasn't just a legal battle, it was a war. They were up against a shadowy cabal that controlled every lever of power and wasn't afraid to eliminate obstacles. Marcus Thorne, the man dismissed as insignificant, now carried the burden of proving that justice could penetrate even the deepest layers of corruption. His quiet dedication had led him to the precipice of dismantling a kingdom, but the path forward was fraught with unimaginable danger. The Civic Progress Alliance didn't take kindly to exposure. The anonymous threat Marcus received was just the beginning. His office faced a barrage of politically motivated audits. Whispers began circulating in the media, subtly discrediting his past cases, questioning his motives. Lena's apartment was broken into, though nothing was stolen, a clear message. David found his financial accounts subtly targeted by phantom charges. This wasn't just a legal battle, it was a psychological war, waged by figures who wielded power like a scalpel and a sledgehammer. But Marcus Thorne thrived in the shadows, where he'd always been underestimated. The threats only hardened his resolve. He knew the Alliance's desperation meant they were feeling the heat. His team, small but fiercely loyal, moved with surgical precision. They intensified their surveillance, tracing every phone call, every meeting, every penny flowing through the Alliance's intricate web. Their break came not from a grand strategy, but a tiny, overlooked detail. David, poring over millions of financial records, noticed an unusual series of small, consistent payments from one of Victor Sterling's obscure holding companies, not to a politician, but to a low-level data technician named Ilara Vance, a relatively minor employee within the city's voter registration office. Vance was an unlikely link, easily dismissed. But the payments coincided precisely with spikes in voter database maintenance in key minority districts. It's not just suppressing voter turnout with police intimidation, David realized, eyes wide. They're manipulating the database itself. Marcus's jaw tightened. This was far more insidious. It wasn't just about deterring voters, it was about invalidating their votes, or making them disappear from the rolls altogether. Ilara Vance, terrified but racked with guilt, eventually cracked under Lena's calm, persistent questioning. She revealed how she had been coerced, under threat to her family, to flag thousands of legitimate voter registrations for a review, effectively disenfranchising thousands of eligible voters in targeted communities just before elections. She also secretly kept a digital ledger of every command, every targeted voter profile, every date and time the order came down, all meticulously linked to encrypted messages from Gideon Vance himself. This was the irrefutable evidence, the digital smoking gun that directly linked the entire conspiracy from the ground-level manipulation all the way up to the puppet master. Armed with Ilara's testimony and her digital ledger, Marcus didn't just plan arrests, he planned a public, undeniable unmasking. He leaked carefully curated, anonymized fragments of the evidence to a trusted investigative journalist, sparking a media frenzy. He then strategically scheduled the grand jury indictments for Mayor Thompson, Council President Sharma, and Victor Sterling on the eve of a major citywide address from Mayor Thompson himself. Thompson, unaware of the full extent of Marcus's evidence, decided to double down on his strong leadership narrative. He scheduled a live, televised press conference from City Hall, planning to denounce the baseless rumors and political attacks against his administration, with Sharma and Sterling by his side, intending to demonstrate a united front. It was the perfect stage for Marcus. Marcus Thorne personally led the tactical team that swarmed City Hall during the live broadcast. The nation watched in stunned silence as federal agents, led by the loser prosecutor, stormed the press conference. Mayor Thompson's face mid-sentence contorted into disbelief and terror as Marcus Thorne, resolute and unyielding, walked directly to the podium, past the bewildered mayor and his allies. He held up a copy of Alara's digital ledger, its contents subtly visible on the large screens in the background. Mayor Thompson, Council President Sharma, Mr. Sterling, Marcus declared, his voice cutting through the stunned silence, amplified by the live microphones. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit voter fraud, racketeering, and obstruction of justice. The sheer audacity, the public humiliation, was devastating. The live broadcast captured everything. The politicians' attempts to flee, their desperate denials, and the cold, unyielding precision of the federal agents. The empire of the Civic Progress Alliance, built on lies and manipulation, collapsed in real time, exposed by the very man they had underestimated and called a loser. The dramatic arrests at City Hall were just the beginning. The irrefutable evidence secured by Marcus Thorne and his dedicated team, particularly Alara Vance's digital ledger and detailed testimony, formed the backbone of the most significant corruption trials the city had ever witnessed. Mayor Thompson, City Council President Anya Sharma, and real estate magnate Victor Sterling, along with Senator Hayes, Captain Davies, and Officer Barnes, faced a united front of federal prosecutors, led by the man they had once dismissed as a loser. The trials were exhaustive, revealing every insidious detail of the Civic Progress Alliance's scheme. The chilling precision with which they manufactured crime waves, manipulated voter databases, and pushed through self-serving legislation was laid bare for the world. Witnesses, once intimidated into silence, found courage in Marcus Thorne's unwavering pursuit of justice. The courtrooms became theaters of truth, exposing how power and greed had twisted the very mechanisms of democracy against the citizens it was sworn to protect. The verdicts came swiftly and unequivocally. Mayor Thompson, Anya Sharma, and Victor Sterling were found guilty on all counts of conspiracy to commit voter fraud, racketeering, and public corruption. Their sentences were severe, signaling a new, uncompromising era of accountability. Senator Hayes, facing overwhelming evidence, pleaded guilty to bribery and influence peddling. Captain Davies and Officer Barnes, their careers and lives irrevocably shattered, were convicted for their roles in police misconduct, excessive force, and participating in the wider conspiracy. The justice delivered was absolute, but the impact extended far beyond the courtroom walls. Under new, ethical leadership, the city underwent a profound transformation. The rezoning bills pushed by Sterling's influence were nullified, returning land rights to the communities. The police department, purged of its corrupt elements, instituted radical reforms, prioritizing community trust and unbiased policing. Voter registration offices received massive overhauls, ensuring the integrity of every ballot. The funds recovered from the Civic Progress Alliance's ill-gotten gains were redirected into robust community development programs, educational initiatives, and affordable housing projects in the very neighborhoods they had sought to exploit. Marcus Thorne, once dismissed and overlooked, emerged as a national hero, a quiet giant of integrity. His worn suit became a symbol of dedication, his old car a testament to his incorruptible spirit. He continued his work as a federal prosecutor, but his influence now resonated far beyond the courtroom. He became a sought-after speaker, inspiring a new generation of public servants to prioritize justice over personal gain. The city, scarred but ultimately cleansed, rose from the ashes of corruption, its democratic foundations restored, its communities revitalized. The man they called a loser had, against impossible odds, brought down a kingdom of lies, proving that true power lies not in wealth or titles, but in an unyielding commitment to truth and the unwavering pursuit of justice for all. For more gripping tales from the hidden corners of justice and beyond, subscribe to Dark Side of Luna, where the shadows hold the truth.